Good evening and welcome to this Bank Holiday special edition of the Scottish Football Social Club and Premier Sports. We're live on X and YouTube as always, so get your questions in. The harder the better for Michael Stewart and Alan Hutton. And I say special edition, it certainly feels like it tonight because we've got two additional guests on the way, including one Scottish Premiership top flight manager and another guest, a man who's been named in the Scotland squad today. That's later on in the programme. So it does feel like a special edition tonight, Al, and we've got loads to get into. So let's just get the pleasantries out the way. A quick reminder, our sponsors, the Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you in association with SBK and Premier Sports. SBK, a betting app that cuts out the nonsense, just straight up sports betting for folk who actually care about the game, proper odds, no gimmicks. So as I say, we put the small talk to one side tonight, get straight into the show. Really pleased.
Can I just be clear? It's a bank holiday where, Darrell?
So, listen,
trust you.
It's a bank holiday to some of the viewers tonight, potentially. This is just a show that goes right across the UK and beyond to Ireland and to the world, Michael. So for some, it's a bank holiday.
A bank holiday in Scotland? Is it a bank holiday in Ireland?
Listen. I said to some, okay? Maybe I should have just said special edition.
Yes.
I knew you'd pull me up in that. It's a bank holiday where I am. And by the way, it's absolutely roasting in my living room. And I said, let's get the small talk to one side. He had to come in, didn't he? He had to get in now. Anyway, really pleased to tell you that we've got the St Mirren manager on the show tonight, Stephen Robinson. After another really good result yesterday against Rangers, it was a point in the end. We were all watching on it. It could easily have been 3 points. So let's get Stephen onto the show now. He's waiting in the wings. Stephen, really good to see you. And thanks for coming on the show tonight, especially because I know this is a rare day off and it was a great day off until we bothered you on the phone and said, would you join us?
Not a bank holiday in Paisley.
To be fair, it's a bank holiday in Northern Ireland because my boys.
There you go.
Hey! I knew it was a bank holiday somewhere. Brilliant. Stephen, you're welcome any week, mate. You're the only guy that saves me in this programme. Brilliant. Listen, have you had a chance to reflect on yesterday, on the game, the overall showing? Because as I say, a point, it's a good result, isn't it? But it could easily have been better.
Yeah, I was able to watch the game back this morning, and you watch it non-emotionally. Then when you're involved in the game, sometimes the result can be better than the performance, to be honest. But we played really well in the first half. I thought we built well. We won a lot of second balls. We played in behind them and caused them problems. And in the second half, we tired, and our centre forwards give us a real platform. So when we don't have that platform, we don't get a build, and we end up defending for large periods of the game. But in that, we still could have nicked it. We still could have nicked it at the end. But look, all in all, a point probably was a fair result for both sides. Rangers were better than us in the second half, and I think we were better than them in the first.
Yeah. They had to change, of course, at halftime, Rangers, which I guess is the ultimate sign of the respect to what you were doing in the game.
Yeah, and they changed a couple of times within that as well. Russell's a clever manager as well, and I think they tried to isolate our back three and leave them with nothing to do really with how they started the game, with the centre forward dropping in and the two wider players causing us problems. But we spoke about that. I thought we handled that really well. We broke play up well, but we also, when we needed to, we played out and we were able to play through them and in behind them where they left them spaces when they left us 2v2 at times. Second half, we started brightly, but we stopped retaining the ball from throw-ins. We allowed them to get a little bit of momentum from their dead balls and their throw-ins, and that comes down to sometimes a little bit of tiredness and the changes that they also made.
Stephen, they've always got loads of questions, Stephen. Yeah. Sometimes they're even good ones. So let's get them in. Al, on you go.
I wanted to ask, so I think from your point of view, it was a really well worked goal. So see, when you're analysing Rangers at this moment in time, are you thinking, right, well, if we can soak up a bit of pressure, get the ball back quickly, then get it forward to the guys that can be dangerous? Is that something you look at the Rangers team and think they're a bit off at this moment in time? So let's get the ball up their play, and that's where the goal comes from.
I don't know necessarily Rangers. I think any of the top teams in the league, you're talking about Celtic and Rangers, we're one of the only teams that play two right up against them. And they're confident enough to leave themselves 2v2 against you. So if you can break on the counter, they leave a lot of space in behind them. So, that's not just really Rangers. That's teams that are dominating possession a lot. And we work on that a lot. We work a lot of countering. We look in back throughs. And there was a lot of bits and pieces first half that with some really good moves from that. I'm a big believer in getting the ball into areas that you can hurt people, and 4 and 5 passes to get into the opposition half as opposed to 30 passes. And that's not long ball. That's, moving the ball quickly at a pace to get it into areas where you can hurt people. I believe against the more possession-based teams, they leave themselves vulnerable. And when we try and exploit that, and we did on numerous occasions yesterday.
Stephen, I always want to touch on the fact that obviously your recent record against Rangers has been very successful. This is the first game you played them this season. Was there anything that you were looking to do different? Obviously, we've just spoken there about, being more possession-based, the top teams looking to get in behind quickly. Was there anything that you were looking to do differently against them yesterday? And was there anything that came from that game that is different to what you've expected or you've seen in the last season or two when you've been playing against Rangers?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of different personnel there now. I think they've signed 10, 11 new players. So you're it's probably your first chance facing. I went to the Bruges game, so I got a good first-hand look at them. The two wide players were very, very effective in the second half as well. So we doubled up in them wide areas. We knew that was what they wanted to do, was to create 1v1 scenarios, and we didn't give that. Whether we doubled up with Marcus Fraser and Jayden Richardson, or our left-sided centre half, who was excellent, I thought, Miguel Freckles and Declan John. So we knew if we doubled up, they'd have to come back around. They play a lot of passes, which leaves them open, and that's when we landed on the ball. First half, we had to buy them passes instead of you win it, you go long, you never get any momentum in the game, and you have to take your rest in possession at times as well. And that was my one criticism, was we didn't do that in the second half, where in the first half, the goal comes from it. Instead of banging it clear under a little bit of pressure, Marcus plays a good ball into Mika, and then you're creating a 1v1 scenario with that space in behind. So we'd worked on that. We'd worked on counter-attack, and we'd worked in that up back through scenarios. In terms of differences, as I mentioned, the personnel, I actually thought Russell changed it a little bit yesterday. I thought that he tried early on to go in behind us a few times to get the wide players to spin in behind, and we dealt with that really well. So there wasn't any real surprises, Michael, to be honest with you. I think a lot of the top teams in the league are predictable, and I say that in a respectful way, because they're very predictable. Celtic are the most predictable team in the league, but you know what they're going to do. But stopping them is the difficult part. We know all the time that this is what they're going to do. You're constantly going to run into zone 2. They're constantly going to get their wide men inside your fullbacks to score. You're going to get their 8s high in their pockets. So you know what's coming, and you know what's coming from Rangers at times as well. But stopping them is the hard bit.
How would you assess the overall start to the season, Stephen? Because you've had some really tough fixtures, and you were so close to getting something at Celtic Park. And then you think the game against Hearts in the League Cup, the dramatic finish, the penalties and everything else. I mean, I know you could have had more points on the board, but overall, you're not really, really pleased with how this has gone.
Yeah, it's been a tough start for us. Celtic, Rangers, Hibs next as well, and Hearts. Yeah. So it's been a tough start. But we've signed 11 players as well. So we are really at the start of a new build as well. Now I've sort of went with the same similar players so far, because the other boys we brought in quite late, and they're not up to speed yet. It's a big step up. Some of them are coming from Jamaica, some are coming from Ireland, some coming up from England with aspirations that the league might be easier than it is. And some settle in quicker. So, I believe we're going to get better. We'll have more options, and we have wingers in the building now, with Conor McMenamin when he's fit again next week, Malak Distil and Jalmaro Calvin. And we've got options that is a little bit different than the 3-5-2. So we're hoping to progress, get more points on the board as well. And I believe there's a lot more to come from us.
Stephen,
so you're happy with the squad at this moment in time then? Like, so how it's developed, how it's going, you've seen you've got these boys come in. Are you always looking for more? Are you always looking for more?
Yeah, there's limitations as a St. manager. I know I get backed as much as I possibly can by the board. We're a fan-owned club, and we don't have millions of pounds. We know that, and that's me not moaning about it. It's just that's the facts. I'd love another quick striker. Yesterday, when Rangers came on to us in the second half and they committed a lot of players forward, they were ripe for the taking and on the counter attack. With Tuosi Olasanya's pace would have been great for us. We haven't quite got that yet. To come off the bench, and that's probably the difference between the top sides in the league, is they bring on like for like. We haven't quite got there yet. We've got young Evan Mooney, who's going to be a very good player. We've got Jalmaro Calvin, we've got in from Jamaica, who's really, really quick, but not quite up to speed yet. So yeah, of course, if I could do that, another midfielder that you're taking Killian Phillips off and maybe bringing like for like on, maybe we could be a little bit higher up the table. But that's a reality of working with one of the smaller clubs. And as I say, it's not a complaint; it's a reality, and one that I've dealt with numerous times, unfortunately.
Stephen, I just wanted to ask you about getting Keanu Bacchus back up from Mansfield. How important do you view him in the team? Because obviously he was a standout before he went down the road. And I think it's a bit of a coup, to be perfectly honest, to get him back up to St Mirren.
Yeah, I found out on the Tuesday night with him signed by Wednesday morning. So that's again, credit to the board, because we were still trying to move players out at that stage. James Scott and Alex Iacovetti went to Ross County, but the deals hadn't been done. So credit to the board for allowing me to do that and backing that. Keanu's family circumstances dictated he was going to come back up the road. We know all about him. We know how good a footballer is and a great kid. And funny, I got asked in the press. They told me I had the best midfield, one of the best midfields in Scotland. So I wasn't really sure how to respond to that. No, they're not very good. They're rubbish. So the headline ended up being Robinson says he's got the best midfield in Scotland. So that's how things work in Scotland, doesn't it? If you say one thing, it gets twisted slightly. But I do believe we've got a very competitive midfield.
Yeah, I read that article, by the way. I read that, Stephen, and I have to say I was going to ask you about it, but it is a really strong part of the team. But how do you keep on doing this in the transfer window? You've found so much value in the market in recent years. You've just said you've got limited resources, obviously, as well as a club, but you continually, you seem to find bargains. I know John Park's involved as well now in recruitment. So how does it work, and how do you keep on pulling these coups off?
Yeah, I mean, John's come in at the sort of the back end of the window, so we had a lot of stuff already done. So we'll see John's benefit obviously going forward January and the summer, and obviously he's helped with getting things over the line. He's got contacts everywhere with agents, so he's incredible, his contacts. But getting Miguel Freckelson up was a big coup for us. He was a boy I'd followed for a long time, and what I do, I stay in touch with all my ex-players. I get them getting into players, and once you've done it, once you've developed players once or twice, then people say good things, hopefully, about you. They're never going to change your life at St Mirren. That's unfortunately the reality. But I do believe that everybody that comes in becomes a better player. We try and treat people properly. I try and be honest with them. And players nowadays are very, very precious. And what you say to them, you have to be careful. But what I try to do is be straight with them. And Toyosi Olasanya being the perfect example. My biggest recruitment is pace. So at St Mirren, we can't get everything. We can't get pace, football intelligence, technical ability. We can't get all three. So if I've got one to choose from, I'll go for pace, because I believe I can make them better positionally. You can improve them technically. And sometimes we get two out of the three, so we try and do that. And then I believe that pace and then our organization can bridge a gap between the finances at times. And that's sort of what we've done. And it's been successful to an extent. And obviously with John coming in now, it's, hopefully opens a few more doors in terms of getting different types of players and from different markets as well.
Stephen, I don't want to misquote you here, but I'm just going to ask you something that was mentioned just before there, because I think it's quite an interesting point. You said players coming up from down south think it's a little bit easier. Do you experience that as a manager, and is it something that you're mindful of when you are looking down south for players to come up?
Oh yeah, look, I've played down in England all my career, so and I was probably the same. You dismiss Scottish football a little bit when you're down there. Players don't follow up. They'll watch the Rangers Celtic game potentially. They don't know anything about it. They don't know the size of the stadiums, the media attention, the platform that Scottish football gives you. So you get boys, and our market's non-league and League Two, and you get boys come up sometimes that think it'll be easy, and I believe it's a real shock to their system at times. Others don't. Others, I use my example. Miguel Freckelson hit the ground running. Yeah. He was well versed in what it was going to be. Shamal George has obviously played here before, Keanu. But it's frantic. You've got 4 leagues in one league. You've got at times you've got League One games where it can be long ball, long throws into the box. You've got to deal with that. You then go to Ibrox and Celtic Park and Hibs and Hearts with thousands of people there, big stadiums. It's a huge wake up call for them. Richard King went from playing in front of 2,000 people in Jamaica to 60,000 people in the first game of the season at Celtic Park. So it's for me, I'm a big believer and fan of Scottish football. I really enjoy it. The craziness of it is mad. People don't realize how crazy it is and the attention that you get with it. But I love it, and it's for me, it's so much better for players' development and the platform that Scottish football can give them. So that's a huge selling point for us as a club.
I think I can say this. I know clearly, Stephen, that you won't, and maybe the boys won't either, but I think they will after you're gone. We'll have a good discussion. You've brought so much value to St Mirren. I think the best bit of business the club have done all summer is getting you signed on a new contract. 3-year deal is done. What does it mean to you?
Darrell, you are such a
yeah, listen, the boys all the people when they're gone, Stephen. That's the thing. That's what they do. But
well done. No, well done, Darrell, for getting in. That's good.
You can have a 20-year contract. It's only your pay-up period that actually matters. They can get ready in 3 months, so it doesn't really matter, unfortunately, as a manager.
Listen, I completely understand that, but it means a lot to the fans, doesn't it? And it must mean a lot to you as well, because that's a good amount of backing, and it does give you some amount of security in the job as well. I am sure there's other clubs that would have been interested, Stephen, in it, given the job you've done the last few years.
So I'm told, but I haven't spoken to many of them. So, you hear these things in the background, and I've learned over time now. I used to get excited maybe 5 years ago and think, oh, this one likes you, that one likes you. But now it's water off a duck's back. I pay no attention to it at all. My 2 sons pay more attention to it than me, because they're constantly saying, "You never told us," and I said, "It's not true." That's why. But I think I'm experienced enough now and managed enough games to realize you have to really, really focus on where you are. 1 week you're a very good manager, and the next week you're not. And there's no black and white in football, especially here in Scotland. And it's getting harder to stay in a job. It's getting harder to have longevity in the job. But I've got good people who, with our resources, try and push this football club every day as far as we possibly can. Getting new ice baths, electric ice baths instead of the ones you jump in, which I've got in my garden for 90 quid. We've got that now. We've got security on the training ground. We've got nice pitches at the training ground. The club's going forward slower than we all want. We all want to compete with Hibs and Hearts every year, and really challenge for that top 6 every year. But what I've tried to do, and I've bought into it, the fans have bought into it, is put platforms and foundations in place that when you do have a bad year, you bounce back. You have more good years more often. 40 years without Europe and 38 years without a top 6 finish was incredible, because when I was up here, I never realized that. I always thought St Mirren were a really good club, really well run, and nice stadium. But then you dig a little bit deeper, and there was no foundation below the first team, and we've tried to build that. It takes time, and I've bought right into that. And what I have is I've got very, very good staff. I get the credit. Good.
Stephen, see on that point, in terms of, obviously, we laugh and joke about the contract extension and just the pay-up period, but see in terms of the actual stability that you've created, and also the stability for yourself as a manager, even though you may well still have aspirations of going higher, I would imagine that for the actual enjoyment of your life away from football, being at a club like St Mirren that has that stability, where you're obviously held in such high regard, that must, as a manager, make your all-over life a lot more enjoyable as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've got a great life. I've got a great lifestyle. Scotland compared to England as well, it's, you're talking 3 games a week. You get no time to coach. You get no time to develop players. League One and the Championship is frantic. It's full on. You never get any time to yourself. But I spent a lot of time with my wife and the 2 dogs, two mad spaniels. We're on the beach or up in Loch Lomond or Loch Tay, and it's a really nice lifestyle. So I value that massively. You can't get this time back again. And my wife may tell you completely different than that. I might be out walking, but I'm thinking about if we're playing 3-4-3 or we're playing against a back 4, which we just were before this year as well, by the way. So I was talking about my old assistant manager about what they do at Sparta Prague. But yeah, it is. Look, it's nice that people believe in you. You know that after 1 bad game or 2 bad games, hopefully you're not going to get the sack. And I do live my life in the negative. I always think the worst. And when you're 3 games into a bad run or 4 games, I always think, well, that's it then. But the board have been very good to me. They allow me to do my job. They that we have a board that decides who we bring in, and I'm part of that. And I'm one of 4 and 5 people that does that. So that's not the case at every single football club. And people always talk about, oh, you've got a lot of power here. I don't have the final say, but I have one of the major says in who comes in and how the club's run. And that's for all the money in the world, I want to manage at the top level. I've got a real belief in myself and the staff. I believe, if you had a budget of, maybe 3 or 4 million more, what you could do with it, I think all the time. And people are throwing that at me, oh, you can only work with a smaller budget. And I think, surely that doesn't make sense. When you can sign more finished article of a player, or you can have really good recovery suites, and you can have 4 physios, and you can have all this in the background that makes your team, you put the platform in place to be more successful with more money, of course. With that comes more pressure and more scrutiny, and that's something you have to live with at them top jobs. But I've no doubt that I can do that. But I'm very, very happy where I am, and the challenge now is to keep doing this year in, year out, and keep breeding success at St Mirren.
I was just going to say, Hutch, didn't worry if your missus gets sick of you. I'm sure Darrell will be more than willing to go for a walk with the dogs with you.
I need to walk every day, by the way. Let me tell you. I'll be delighted.
See the success that you've had over these number of years and finishing in the top 6. It's amazing to hear you still say, like, you go through a wee period where it's not quite going well and you're not too sure, like, the question marks are there. I mean, what you've done has been incredible. But to think that way, like, it's just the life of a manager, I guess, then. It's just it's hard.
I think you watch a lot of people around you, and you see the stick that people get. But I think if you live your life like that, but as well, listen, I always try and reinvent myself. I try and change the team. I try and change personnel. I always think in my mind, every 3 years, the manager needs to change. And if the manager doesn't change, then the players need to change. So that's why this year we've signed a lot of players, because it's the same voice, the same message at times. We're tweaking it ever so slightly. And I do a lot of research, when I was with Northern Ireland, and we went to a lot of clubs abroad, and you try and steal ideas, but you still always have that doubt in your mind when you lose games. We've seen how quick people turn. We were drawn at home last year when we were going through a spell, and we got booed off the pitch, and you're going, it's the same everywhere. People voice their opinions, and you have to accept it. So it motivates me, but it motivates me that I never take anything for granted. I never think, I'm okay, I've lost 3 games or 4 games. I go in on a Monday morning and try and be even better than we were last week, and try and give the challenge to the staff of being better. We can't have a set play coach, and now 35% of goals are scored through set play. So I'm obsessive with dead ball stuff, because it's free. You don't need loads of talent for it. And we've done that this year. We've given new jobs to new members of staff. Brian Kerr has been fantastic for me, Jamie Langfield. And we challenge each other every day. So I think that's how you stay fresh, and don't take anything for granted, because it's certainly not a world you can take things for granted. No, Alan.
Brilliant. Stephen, thank you so much for your time. I was just looking at your fixtures there. You mentioned Hibs away next, then I think you're away at Falkirk, and then it's the League Cup quarter-final, isn't it? Kilmarnock away. What opportunity that is as well. So we'll see you in Premier Sports that weekend. Absolutely brilliant. I promised you we'd only have you for about 15 minutes tonight. There you go.
I'm away back out for the dogs again now.
Good, man. Go and enjoy the well. Stephen, thank you so much. And good
Brilliant,
luck
man.
as
Thanks
well.
for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see you
soon.
soon. Thank you, Stephen.
Cheers, man.
Absolutely superb. What a great insight as
Great
well,
guy.
Michael. And to life at St Mirren, and the resources he's working with, and also to hear still that ambition as well. And I wondered, I think we've had conversations as well in this show last season, why, and the St Mirren fans are going to absolutely detest me for saying this, Michael, but why maybe a Hearts or Hibs, one of the so-called bigger clubs, maybe even bigger again, haven't gone and got Stephen Robinson, because the track record, particularly in Scotland, outstanding.
Yeah, well, obviously the 2 clubs that you mentioned now have got what I would regard as strong managers, but
No doubt.
But to go back to your point, there has been periods in the last few years when clearly Stephen Robinson's been doing very well, that those clubs have been looking for, or certainly should have been looking for, what you regard as what seems like a pretty safe bet in terms of being able to do a good job in Scottish football. And I thought, it's very interesting and very enlightening hearing some of the things that Stephen Robinson's talking about there. In particular, obviously, about people coming up from down south. He's experienced it himself. But you can add that to managers as well, in terms of, it's not just players, it's managers, it's executive level people that come from down south that don't really understand the demands of the game here in Scotland, or they undermine it, I would suggest. I think it's a fair point that he could well, and I would imagine in the future as well, be linked with some other jobs as well.
Yeah, and I've heard that levelled as well. People have said, Stephen Robinson's never worked with the biggest budgets or hasn't shopped in the next market up. How do you know if a manager's going to have a success at that next level until you try? And he deserves that, Al, doesn't he?
Absolutely, but I'm just saying, talking about working with bigger budgets, everything.
Yeah.
You look at guys that go into these big jobs and they struggle with it, and they've got teams behind them that's helping them, that is trying to recruit and help and all this different stuff. So, look, I think what he's done there has been outstanding. And what I liked about what he said was he was talking about building foundations, constantly changing, being different after every 3 years. He wants to put it right there for people to come in and be the best that they can be, and he wants to help them do that. So, no, I thought it was brilliant listening to him.
Do you know what, Darrell? I would say probably one of the reasons, perhaps, is that there's a perception, to a certain extent, of the style of football that St Mirren play. And this is not a criticism of Stephen, but I think at times he perhaps almost plays into that, because sometimes if things aren't going too well, you'll quite often hear him saying, we're not good enough to be thinking that we can play at that. We need to focus on the basics, so to speak. And I think sometimes that feeds into the perception or the narrative that they're a long ball team or they're physical, when in reality, if you actually look at a lot of St Mirren, they're just extremely competitive. They do nail down the basics.
And they score some brilliant goals, by the way, and they play some great stuff at times.
They do. And I think what you notice, certainly watching them at the start of this season so far, I think Killian Phillips has kicked on brilliantly.
Superb player.
I wasn't sure whether he was technically the best. I thought he was a bit more of a physical, runner. But having watched him, technically, he looks to have improved his game. I look at Adowu, who can obviously play up top or play off the side. He's somebody that's got real good technical ability as well. And once you add that little bit more technical ability, it gets a really good balance. Bacchus is another one. He's got a bit of everything.
It's a great point, actually. That's a great addition to bring him back again. And that point there by Mark, I think just the point made about teams in League One and League Two will come calling. Just listen to what Stephen Robinson said there. I'm not sure he desperately jumped back to League One and to that style. Maybe if a big championship club down south come calling,
that's a little bit altogether. Different. Yeah, you can understand.
But I think at the moment his ambitions are higher and he's happy. And the great news for St Mirren, because we need to move on, is they've got that 3-year contract signed. So if someone wants to come and get him now, I'm sure they'll be.
They need to stop playing Rangers. Can they stop playing Rangers?
Well, listen, let's move, because we've got another guest coming on soon. So let's move on to Rangers now, Al. I mean, it's a massive week ahead. What do you make of the way they played in spells against St Mirren? What do you make of what Russell Martin has said after the game? There's 1,000,001 questions I could ask you again.
Mate, there's 1,000,001 things, and that's what I used to look forward to coming on to this. But every single week we're talking about the same stuff. I just want them to have a good game so we can sit here and just wax lyrical about them. But I mean, see when they have all the possession and I'm sitting watching it, but it's just side to side, up, back through, and then you go back to the goalkeeper, you're just recycling it. I'm like, speed it up, play with a little bit aggression in your play, intention to go forward and try and do something. I think it's a hard watch at this moment in time. You've got two strikers on the bench, you play Asgard through the middle, which that was a worry for me, because I'm saying to myself, why are you doing that? All right, he's maybe seen him in training and thinks he's good enough to be there, but you've got two actual strikers there that aren't playing, and I just, at the back, the amount of times that they switch off, and it's kind of schoolboy at times. If you go through a lot of the goals that they've conceded, especially midweek, 3-0 down after 20 minutes, it's a real difficult watch. And I know he's saying we have to learn from it, we have to improve, but it has to happen now. I'm seeing the same things game after game after game. Even Alloa conceding 2 goals. It's not been good enough. And yes, they have all the possession, but ultimately, what are you doing with it?
Yeah. Well, listen, we've got another guest coming on in a couple of minutes. I just want to get through a couple more questions and a couple more points with Yal. Iggyman, what was said after the game? Look, who knows whether he's injured or not? I'm sure we'll find out more in the next 24 hours ahead of the game against Club Brugge. It does sound a lot like his head's been turned. He doesn't want to come on because there's a move in the offering. Right. So if that's the case, it's a disgrace from Iggyman. I think all three of us agree on that.
That's the case.
What about the way Russell Martin has dealt with it, though? I know he's got to defend himself, but you've got 2 of your biggest games in the whole season coming, because Club Brugge, if you somehow miraculously get through that, that's a game changer for the club. We all said that last week, £40 million ahead. If he's your best option in the forward line, would it not have been better to pull him aside and say, play midweek, get us into the Champions League somehow, son, and then you'll get your wish and you'll move on. And at that point, maybe the transfer value goes up anyway. By coming out and saying that, has he not made life in a kind of strange way? Because I know he's defending himself. Has he made life harder for himself?
Darrell, all I would because you think he's a bad egg now, because like he's thrown his toys out the pram. We need him. Russell Martin talks about being all in. He's not all in. He's got an eye somewhere else.
And I get that.
But I think you can squash it really easy. Like, and I know he gets interviewed straight after the game. All he has to say is, look, I wanted to bring him on, and he's felt something in a warm-up. Done. That's it. That's why he didn't come on. Move on. Next question. The way it was worded, it was basically, it's that question mark behind it saying, well, is he injured or isn't he? And now we're all talking about it. Because if that was the case and he said, basically, no, I'm not playing for you, I'm not going on, I think that's a disgrace. I think you should, while you're employed by a team, you give everything until the moment you're obviously gone. But
just briefly on this, Michael, go on.
It's the 25th of August, the window shuts at the end of the month. Russell Martin's going on endlessly about being all in. Problem at the moment is some guys, before the window shuts, they've got one eye going out the club and one eye staying here. Once the window shuts, everything will be better. What happens if they don't sell Igaman in a week's time?
Exactly.
I mean, seriously.
I agree.
The player's not all of a sudden going to be, all right, well, I'm delighted, I'm going to be all in. Especially when, like, by the way, if it is the case that he said that he's injured and he's not, it's a disgrace. But this could have been handled so much better to basically avoid the public scrutiny. The other thing I was going to say was, Russell Martin has gone on endlessly about, the issues at the club that have been there for so long. And he's not wrong with that. But that game yesterday, 8 of the starting players had been brought in. 8. So don't talk about the historic issues. You've brought in 8 players and it still looked devoid of energy. And the 3 that were there, Butland, Suter and Raskan, they're the guys that you'd be going, we've got to keep them because they're top players. And you've brought in loanies from down south, young guys that don't understand and do not need to be thrown into a bear pit like the atmosphere that's there at the moment. And the recruitment is completely wrong. They have missed out on key targets and they ignore the domestic market. Stephen Robinson spoke about it. You go and get people from down south, they undermine the standard here. And that is self-evident across the board at Rangers.
Spot on. And I think Rangers have had that problem for a few years, missing out on domestic targets and then trying different, shopping in different markets. It's not worked. A couple more things, I'll just very briefly. What chance do you give them midweek?
Come on. Well, let's not kid ourselves on. It's going to be very difficult. I've seen them a few times last season. I know they've got a couple of changes, but I was really worried about especially that first half performance the other week. Like, the boy Van Aken, I knew he was a good player. How are you giving him the freedom of Ibrox? Like, genuinely, why can somebody not get close? Like, they've got real talented players. The first goal, as we always say, is crucial. If Rangers get it, then you never know, it could become a wee bit shaky for Bruges. But if they lose the first one, I think they could crumble. I mean, that's how I looked at this moment in time. But it means everything, this game.
Yeah. Right, final one then on Rangers. Very strongly linked with Miovski. So I know a lot, maybe there have to be movement out the club before they could go and sign him. I think the news tonight is that he wouldn't want to come on a loan move to anyone, that he'd only want a fresh start, if that's correct, what I'm reading tonight. So if Rangers could go out and could spend the money, would it be a good addition for them?
Well, I think if you look at it this moment in time, then yes. I mean, you look at the situation with the strikers and what's going on and who's possibly going to be leaving. They need something done. It's a guy that knows the league. He's played, obviously, at Ibrox and scored goals and all this. He understands what it means, what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to be the main guy. So I think they should, if they can, and the price is right, because I said people will be going out. But it's been difficult since he's left Aberdeen. But I think this would be an opportunity for him and one that he would like. But you really need to hit the ground running. I mean, it's really difficult at this moment in time to play at Ibrox.
I can only imagine what the Aberdeen fans would think. Go on, Michael, quickly.
On that point, that Asgard is playing up top against St Mirren on yesterday. And, you're trying to think, is there a tactical reason? Is the manager trying to do a little bit something different? And it's none of the above. No. It's because Dessers is injured, Danilo's not good enough, and Igamani doesn't like. So you've literally got a situation. And by the way, Dessers, they were trying to offload earlier in the window. So you're
Still
saying,
might...
as a club, how can you get to this position and not have a striker in the door?
Yeah,
and I'll go back to it.
I agree.
Lawrence Shankland was a free transfer and they could have made an offer. They didn't even make an offer.
So imagine he was in the building right now.
Yeah, well,
like from the start of the season.
He'd be playing. Just a final one on Iggaman, by the way, because a lot of people saying, he went to warm up and he got injured. That's what Russell Martin said. Why not start him? And the answer might be from the manager, he's not fit enough.
I don't think he looks fit enough.
Yeah, but Rangers are starting poorly every game, Al. Play your best team surely from the start. Try and get ahead. If you only last 45 minutes, take him off, then you'll never know if they get injured in warm-up. Anyway, that's for another day. Listen,
let me touch on
We're going to go. We're going to go. Right, go.
No, just the Iggaman thing. This is another classic example of where Rangers never putting down strong foundations. Iggaman is got a bit of ability, but he doesn't appear to be a strong character that you would build a team around. So he is like the rubble of the last disaster that happened.
The rubble. Right, come on, let's move on. This is hard.
We'll move on before you lose the rest of the Rangers support.
I agree with you.
And by the way, what's going to happen is Russell Martin's next 5 games: Brugge, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs, Livy.
That is not easy.
Now, I'm not being funny. Ibrox is already toxic. If he doesn't get some results, it will be unbearable. And as much as the 49ers come in and it's their guy, I'm not sure he can survive if they don't get results there. I've just said, all the transfer business that's just been done there in the window, how many of them are guys that you're wanting to build strong foundations on top of?
No, it's a good point. If he doesn't win any of the next 3 or 4, he probably won't be there to find out. Right, listen, we must move on. We're going to have to get back to all the highlights, by the way, because we need to get this show in an hour. Let me apologise to the guests waiting in the wings. Grant Hanley has been waiting, I think, for 3 or 4 minutes.
It was Michael's fault.
Because the boys were going off in one. You know what Michael's like, because you're also in the capital now. He can talk, Grant. But anyway,
it was longer than 3 or 4 minutes, I tell you that.
Was it? I can't. Nobody told me. Anyway, listen, hands up, apologies. Great to see you. Thank you for coming on the show. How's life in Scotland so far, and how much are you doing to avoid Michael in the capital?
But it's funny, actually, I bumped into him day one.
So, unlucky you. Unlucky you.
He didn't persuade you to sign, did he?
No, nothing like that. So, no, like you said, I bumped into him day one, so that was nice. But I really enjoying it.
Treating you well, yeah.
Yeah, no, really enjoying it. I think maybe been lured into a false sense of security with the weather so far.
Yeah. You get used to that.
No, the weather's been amazing, so get ready for that to change. But no, it's been good.
Good.
You know, the city's lovely, so enjoying that side. Yeah.
I'll get to Hibs in just a second, but obviously the international squad named today, you're in there again. I assume, look, it doesn't get old, does it? It's always an honour.
No, of course. I mean, that's, being a wee boy growing up, that's your dream. You want to play for your country. So I understand I'm probably getting towards, the back end of my career now. So, as long as you can hang in there, all the better for me.
Centre half, you can play till you're about 40. Don't worry about it. It's different if you're running up and down the wings and that. You'll be fine.
I don't know. As the game's changed now. You have to run out and make angles to get in the ball and all that now.
Oh, right.
How is the fitness, Grant? Seriously, because I don't know what your pre-season was like, because obviously you joined Hibs quite late in the day.
No, I mean, without a pre-season with a club, really, no getting minutes under your belt, it's no ideal. But I have been training. Norwich were really good with me. They let me train with the under-23s. So in terms of team training, I've done quite a bit. Also been running myself and try to stay as fit as you can, but it's totally different for being in a first team environment and actually being on the pitch and playing minutes. I'm sure everybody will tell you, you can train or you can run as much as you want, but when you get on that big pitch and it's people are running channels and strikers are bashing into you. It's totally different.
How have you
found it? Have you been surprised, like with the level, if you want, of teams? Like you think it's been a sellout at home for the European games? Never. Have you been surprised at like the size of it and just the quality of the players and the teams?
No, yes and no, really. Obviously, I knew it was a massive club and I knew what I was coming into. But I think coming up to watch the Midtjylland game and seeing the atmosphere that night, that was really top. And I think no so much an eye opener, but really, sort of sunk in, how well the club was supported.
Yeah.
Go on, Michael.
I was just going to say, obviously, you've started a couple of games now. You had the Killie game in the league, and then the Livy game and the cup afterwards as well. How do you feel? I mean, because I think you handled both the games very well. How are you feeling fitness-wise, having got those 2 games under your belt?
No, I think obviously at this stage of relying on a wee bit of experience to sort of carry through those games, which I felt like I'd done all right in. But I've sort of been one of those players. I think especially for centre halves, it takes you probably a run of games, maybe 3, 4, 5 games, to really get a bit of rhythm and get up to speed. So it'd be nice at some point to feel like I'm getting that rhythm. But I understand the position that I'm at in terms of where I'm coming in fitness wise, and obviously the team's doing really, really well at the minute. So it's going to be difficult to break into that team. But no, it's something I'm really really be happy to be a part of, and happy to have a club and a team that's going the right direction.
Massive game against Warsaw on Thursday coming up, and obviously fingers crossed there's a positive result. That will bring a lot more games as well in the Conference League.
No, of course, and that's it. And I mean, as a player, you want games. It's like we've had. This has been sort of the lads' first week. Would have had a week between games, and it sort of felt strange, I think, for them. Actually having to train rather than just preparing for the game, playing, recovering. So that's it. And as a player, you want to be playing as much as you can. You want to be playing and getting as far on and doing as well in every competition as you can. You've
obviously had a great career down south. But how exciting is the potentially going and competing in the European? Well, obviously you've had a couple of games so far, but potentially going into that Conference League group stage.
No, of course, and obviously that was, a factor in deciding to come here, having that opportunity. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get the job done and we can progress. And it's also something in my career that I've never experienced before. Having played in Europe internationally, but never in European competition at club level. So, be another part of my career that hopefully I can do well.
How big is the challenge this week, Grant? Having seen Legia in the first leg, of course.
No, I mean it was a strange game, really. I think we obviously we knew the quality they had and what we were up against. We started the game really well, and I felt like they felt the atmosphere a wee bit, and maybe a bit rocked by it, and we had a chance or two where you could have went ahead. They also then showed their quality and scored a couple of goals, and it's football's funny, isn't it? Because they obviously scored a third and it gets disallowed, and then we go and score, make it 2-1, and the game's totally different. And I think probably we can take a lot of belief in that.
That's
and
the
a lot
thing.
of confidence going in the next game.
Scoring at that time as well. Like, it just, right, okay, we're still in this tie. It's going to be difficult. We've shown that we can hurt them as well. So you must be going into that confident.
No, definitely.
Doing good as Europe.
Definitely. And I think in the last round as well, and feeling that sort of that atmosphere going away from home, and the lads have shown that they can handle that sort of pressure, picking up a good result. And so no, definitely along the way there's been bits and pieces for each game that the boys can take confidence from, and hopefully that can carry us.
Grant, I was going to ask you about, obviously, Josh Mulligan scoring the goal late on against Legia there. He's not the only young Scot that's in the side. How impressed have you been with a few of them? Obviously, Kieran Bowie up top, who's in the national team. Mulligan, who's brought into the club in the summer there. There are others, domestic Scottish players. How impressed have you been with some of those young guys?
No, not really impressed. I think the squad and the whole, obviously the two that you've mentioned there, have been really impressive. But I think the squad in the whole, there's real competition for places, it feels. And the two that you mentioned, I think you can see their quality. Obviously, I seen Big Kieran in the summer, and he showed his attributes where he's, I think for him, he can, go on and do whatever he wants to do in the game with the attributes that he's got. Still very young, and he's got so much room to improve and get better, which I'm sure he will. And And Josh as well. I've been really impressed with him. Obviously, his goal was massive the other night for us. His goal at Livy as well was, another bit of evidence of the quality that he's got. So, I'm sure those lads are, in the best place to develop. They've got to play. They've got to get game time. They've got to come up against, top opposition regular. So, I'm sure they'll go on to do really well.
And what's it been like working with David Gray? Because he was on the show last season. He's still a young manager himself, developing, and he went through a lot last year, as you know, and you're the experienced head in there too now. So do you find that he is a manager who's bringing a lot to your game at this age still, as a manager who's obviously still improving himself?
No, definitely. I think, coming up and meeting everybody that's here in terms of, the manager, the coaching staff, again, was a big part of my decision making, and coming up and spending a bit of time with the manager, and how he spoke, and you can see how he conducts himself, and how he treats the players and how he gets his message across. That he was going to be really, really good to work with, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Good. Listen, just a couple more before we let you go then. So Scotland games ahead, you'll be desperate to play. Denmark away, Belarus away, a World Cup on the horizon. That would be an amazing next summer, wouldn't it?
No, of course it would be. I think, having tasted a couple of tournaments with the national team, and maybe not as doing well as we thought we should have, it makes you hungry for more. So that's the goal. So I'm sure we'll be giving it all for that.
Good. And just to be clear, Michael, you don't have Grant's number, do you? So you can't text him to arrange a drinks night out or anything.
He's not drinking. He's a professional.
Clearly.
You're right, Michael.
Well said. Don't worry about all the whiskies he had behind him last week, by the way, Grant. Honestly, it was noted by some of the fans watching. Listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for waiting for a few minutes as well when these guys were having the Rangers debate. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. Good luck with Hibs. Good luck with Scotland as well. We'll chat again soon, Grant.
Thanks very much. Cheers. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
I can't believe, Mikey, you met him on his first day. Honest to goodness. Like, what's the chances of that happening? Like, seriously.
Have you signed yet? You hadn't signed.
And then you are just walking down the street.
There was a rumour Michael did the tour of the city, by the way, and that sealed the deal, Alan, and I'm not joking.
Talk to me submission.
Anyway, right, listen, speaking of Jambos, we've got to move on, right? Because we could talk Scotland and Grant Hanley and all the good young Hibs players. Fingers crossed for Hibs midweek. Massive game coming in Warsaw. All the best to them and Grant Hanley and David Gray and the rest. Let's move on. I mentioned the Jambos. Hearts, Motherwell at the weekend, Michael. A crazy game. The way it swung in the second half. So much credit deserved, though, by Motherwell. We've had their manager on this show this season. We've said the way they set up. I think you guys were saying if they could just find the kind of goal scorer. 3 goals. I mean, they're great to watch at times, aren't they?
I mean, look, everything that we spoke about before, and when Jens Bertolascu was on, we had a great chat. I mean, I said at the time, really, really enjoy listening to him, and I enjoy watching his team play. I mean, they were absolutely outstanding for the first hour or so. They had Hearts all over the place.
Some of the new signings look great too, by the way.
Yeah, they do. They really do. But I mean, the big thing for me is just the collective unit. The way they play. When you talk about style, and obviously there's a big thing at Rangers in particular. There's style with substance at Motherwell. They know what they're doing. They play with a purpose. Possession with a purpose. He will be very disappointed that they've ended up drawing the game.
Did you see this comeback?
But by the way, I mean, they could have ended up losing the game. I mean, that is how raucous Tynecastle turned. And that man, Claudio Braga, what an influence he had on the game.
I can't imagine Michael Braga's going to be on the bench too many more times.
No, I don't think so. I just wonder whether he's... he started all the games previously, had made a huge impact. The previous one against St Mirren, he wasn't starting, came on, had an impact. I just wonder whether Derek McInnes was just feeling like not want to burn them out too soon. A few other big squad at Hearts, trying to move a few players round, give them some game time. But you're right, I think now he's pretty much a stick on. He's got to play. He's got to play.
How important was that for Hearts, by the way, Michael? Because I know it's early days, right? And I know the positivity is still there, but having gone out the cup, which was a blow, it was penalties, it could have gone either way, but that was a blow, having targeted silverware. The way they were losing the game 3-0, if it continued in that direction, there'd have been a few doubters all of a sudden.
Yeah, it would have, and especially because there's a couple of things here, and I think the manager he summed it up really well in terms of what that game shows is the pure grit, determination and desire that's in the Hearts team is in spades, by the way. And I spoke about this when you were going, oh, you need to be positive about Hearts. But it's a good point.
We were just winding you up.
It's a good point, though, that Hearts won the first 2 games of the league campaign, not through amazing play, but more about will and desire and hunger. Once they can add a little bit better quality in their performance, that stands them in good stead, by the way. But they came up against the Motherwell side that had them chasing shadows in that first hour.
It looked so good. That first hour. Some of them. But see, when we talk about Motherwell and we talk about Rangers, you can actually see what Motherwell are doing. Right? Yep. It's quick. It's moving the ball fast through the lines, penetrating runs, giving people the ball in the good areas where they can affect the game. Where you see Rangers trying to have possession, it's just very slow, side to side. Let's go back to the keeper. They've got a purpose in what they're doing. They're very well drilled in it. And for that first 60 minutes, perfect.
Absolutely superb. Right, this next game might not take so long, Al. Kilmarnock 0, Dundee 0. Some good chances in the game, though. And I think when you look at it overall, right, it's not a bad result at all for Stephen Presley. Maybe a continuation, heading in the right direction. And for Kilmarnock, I actually think Stuart Kettlewell's had a pretty decent start. When you look at the points, could have been, unbeaten. But when you look at the points, could have been better. But that League Cup quarter-final against St Mirren on the horizon too, I think a lot of Killie fans would have taken this start.
Yeah, absolutely. They would have. I mean, unbeaten. I know it's been 3 draws for them, and they'll want to turn them into wins. But I think the turnover of players, the experience that has left the building, they are. Look, the first half I don't think was great. I thought in the second half there was more opportunities.
Yeah. They were dominant, weren't they? Killie second half.
Yeah, but see, definitely second half. But just for me, both teams lacking in the final third. Look, and I know Dander's come into Dundee. They've got Simon Murray who's back. I think they will click. They know each other very well. But
I like the look of Dackers.
Yeah, so do I. But because look at size him as well. You can hit him. I think he's better than that. I think he is relatively good with his feet as well. But it's who's going to be that guy that's going to get you your 10 goals, or who's going to be the midfielder that's going to come in and get you 8 goals, and it's all
you've got to take those chances.
He has to score that. Bruce Anderson has to score that. I mean, that's the moment that you're waiting for to get you those 3 points. But look, I thought there was a lot of positives for both sides, and I think Dundee, they're trying to kind of trend in the right way. They're just building slowly. But Kilmarnock, especially at home when they've got that amount of chances, you need to be able to finish in the final third. So that's the kind of bit that's letting them down.
Up next for Dundee, of course, the Dundee Derby live in Premier Sports next weekend. Cannot wait for that. I know you guys.
Please be the same as the last time. As long as it's like that was outstanding.
I've loved the chaos of those derbies down the years. Brilliant game to watch. Anyway, moving on, Michael. Celtic against Livingston. Obviously, there's a huge game ahead for Celtic. Kairat Almaty, after the disappointing home result in European competition when the fans expect, and of course, there was a lot of calls in the direction of the board. But to go and make this number of changes, we'll come back to Europe in a sec, but to go and make this number of changes and still win 3-0, I know they had to bring on some players in the second half, Celtic. Not many teams can do this and see offsides in Scotland with making, 8-9 changes?
No, absolutely. There's not many, if any, that can do that. But I think the interesting point here is as well, though, that they needed to make changes at the second half because the first half was a bit flat, which I think it feeds into the whole narrative and the debate about the Celtic squad, that you can't ignore the
what
obvious.
A save.
I know it's a quite incredible save. You can't ignore the quite obvious gaps that are in the squad, and Brendan Rodgers is not hiding away for that. He's spoken about it endlessly, and the ramifications that has on the season as a whole. Now, Nygren has come in, and he's been a standout. He was the standout player on Saturday as well. That's a great finish with his right foot. He was the best player on the park by a country mile, proving obviously that you don't need to go and spend incredible sums of money to get quality in. You've just got to be on point and actually do your research on the players.
Yeah. Can I just say on Negrin, Michael, just on that, I spoke to Benjamin Negrin last week. What a lovely guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Also really intelligent. You can tell the way he looks at the game. He was a captain at his former club, but he talked about not just coming into Celtic in Champions League terms, just to compete. Now, they need to get there, obviously, but he was talking about the ambition to come and excel. He watched the Celtic games last season as well. I just thought, as a personality beyond the footballer, Michael, he ticks every box.
Well, he does. And the other key thing in this, Darrell, is that he comes into a squad that's core is really strong. So he's adding on top of that to a core that's already good, and it only benefits. So even if you're bringing in a player that's a bit of a maverick and you might have a slight worry about whether they're going to be a real positive or they might have a little edge to them. See, when you've got that strong core, you can actually take a bit of a gamble with them because the majority are going to pull them along. Whereas with Negrin, you wouldn't have any concerns about that because clearly, as you said, he's an intelligent footballer and he's somebody that is going to, he's fitted into the squad perfectly. But
and he can play in that advanced role.
They need to get that top, line, the strikers and the wingers sorted. And if they do, they're in line for a very, very strong season.
Well, listen, they've got to make the Champions League.
Alistair Johnson's, by the way, that's a huge blow.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it is, Hearts, no doubt about it. But it is a big blow, but I don't have as major a concern about that because Tony Ralston can play for 3 months right back and he'll do a job. The big issue for Celtic is that front line to be able to compete in the Champions League.
Who starts in Kazakhstan? Who starts up front in Kazakhstan, Michael?
Maeda.
Same.
Al?
Same, I'd go Maeda.
What was when I watched that advanced?
Yeah, see when I was watching the first leg, I'm actually, you're watching it going, right, Ida, you need more. I need more from you. Like, give me a little bit. He's just running away from him. He's not really linking up the play. He's not really doing much. And you're getting frustrated watching it. And it kind of shows you what they're crying out for.
Yeah. Listen, what a monumental game this is for the football club, Michael. Right, never mind just the money and the prestige, but to build on what they did last season when they were so close against Bayern, but also going back to the words of Brendan Rodgers to say that he wanted the club to match their ambition and the players not being signed in time for this qualifier. If it goes the wrong way, I think the repercussions are huge. Do you agree? But if it goes the right way, it could still be an unbelievable season with new players arriving. And it looks like a couple on the way tonight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's got huge ramifications, this game in Kazakhstan, for all the points that you've just highlighted there. If they don't get through, then okay, they could still go and have a successful season in the Europa, but you just feel that the negativity and the seeds of doubt that plants in the manager's mind.
Yes.
You've got to be thinking about this is his last year of his contract, and it would seriously undermine the potential for him to stay longer. Whereas if they get through this stage, they do get good recruitment in, it gives them a far better opportunity to perhaps get the manager to sign on again. But they are really, really gambling big time in this window.
Massively. This is pivotal potentially for the manager's future. Al, almost out of time, but Aberdeen in Romania after the comeback last midweek, which was great to see. What chance did you give them?
Yeah, look, I want to see all the Scottish teams doing well. I think getting back into it after going behind, I think shows the character and everything that they've got. Also, look, it's not going to be easy. No away game's ever going to be easy, but I think if they play to the level that they can, that they've got an opportunity there to go and do something to play in a European competition. So, no, look, I'm looking forward to them all. I want them all to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed. The team selection, Michael, is going to be really interesting. I wouldn't bring you in on this, but you've been shouting Polvara's name recently. He was superb when he came on in the game. Sockler and others, the fans clearly want them in the team to start this game. Let's see what happens. We'll talk more on that next week. All right, a final thank you to our sponsors, SBK again. And another reminder that Dundee Derby is live with us this weekend. 2 p.m. Sunday, you're both there, is that right?
Yeah. Can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Superb. Guys, thank you very much. Excellent show tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. We're back next Monday on the Social Club once again. We'll see you then. Bye for now.